Greetings to you, the lucky owner of the Rogalinski RR-36 prop. I wanted to take a moment and introduce you to this prop, give you a walkthrough of how it works, how you're going to store it, how it's going to come to you. So let's just go ahead and get started, okay? So the prop itself is going to come to you in this nicely repurposed Pelican case. Let me pop this open. I think I can turn this toward the camera and you can see this. So once you open it up, you're going to see the two primary halves of the gun. And I'll talk about how this works here in just a second. So let's pull those out. Now there's a lot of foam in here. It is not custom cut foam. This was not designed by Apple in California. So I've just kind of repurposed what I had around, but it is pretty safe and it's pretty solid. So I'm not really worried about it. So here's the other half of the gun. And then we have the very special locking mechanism, which I'll talk about here in just a second. So the first thing you're going to want to do is put this gun together so that you can check it out. So a few things that you should know. All of the electronics are in this piece, the part with the handle and the trigger and whatnot. So you can look at the top, see some wires, there's some LEDs in the back, and I'll show you how all these work. There's also the optic mechanism. You want to be really careful with this. In fact, you want to be really careful with the whole prop. This thing is printed out of PLA plastic. It is not the toughest thing in the world. I mean, it can withstand a couple of bumps and whatnot, but you got a lot of small, delicate parts here which are hanging off. And if you drop this, you should expect to break it. So try not to drop it, and I would not hand it to anybody you think might drop it. So, just a quick overview of the electronics. If you pull off the handguard up here at the front, which requires a little bit of wiggling out, kind of work it out like a tooth. Go real slow, don't rush it, don't force it, it will come out. So here's the primary location of all the electronics. I'll hold that up so the camera can see it. Don't be too afraid. This is pretty tough, but again, I mean, you wouldn't want to grab these cables and yank on them. The batteries are in here. Now, I will have wedged a little folded up piece of paper, probably very much like this one you see here. It might be this very one, in between the battery and the positive lead, just so that I can ship it to you. So the first thing you'll want to do to get this working is pull that piece of paper out. And then, if you look in here, there's like a little microchip that's kind of wedged in there. Don't be afraid of that, it's okay. But there is some delicate cabling in here, so I wouldn't go rooting around too terribly hard. There's also some switches, but I'll come back to those and what they are in just a moment. For now, actually, let's just test this and make sure it comes on. It doesn't come on, which is great. I love it when that sort of thing happens, when you're giving a demo and then the thing you're trying to show off suddenly doesn't work. That's always, oh, it did work, haha! Sorry, the battery was just a little out of alignment, no problem. So boom, we got a laser, we got a lamp, and it's hard to see out here in the North Carolina sun, but the screen on the side is illuminated. I think maybe if I blink the power button a little bit, you might be able to make that out. No, not really, it's super bright. Also, we have red LEDs in the back, and we'll see what those do here in just a moment. So, those switches I showed you earlier, they're located here. There are 3 of them, and these are dip switches that set the configuration for the weapon. So the first one controls primary power, which is the screens, and the red LEDs, which will become the backlights for the gun. I'll show how those in their final form once we get the gun assembled, but for now, let's go ahead and get this out of the way. So primary power is the first switch. You're probably always gonna have that on. There's really no reason to ever turn it off, but it's got its switch if you ever want to. The next switch, I believe, is the lamp, or it might be the laser. I actually forgot. Hang on, let's test it. So the middle switch, if I turn that off, okay, the middle switch is the lamp. There we go, good. And the last switch is the laser. So the idea is that you can use these switches kind of like dip switches on like old 1980s electronics to configure the feature set that you want. So main power, and then lamp, and then laser. So if you need to turn the laser off, like it's bothering the dog or cat or something, then you can just turn that off and it'll never be a problem. For now, I'm gonna have everything left on at all times. And then main power is this little button right back here behind the foregrip. So for now, we'll turn that off, and let's go ahead and put this back in. Don't be too afraid of all this, but I mean, this is, homebrew, semi-delicate electronics, so you just wanna line this up and gently push it into place. There's a little bit of tension there, but that's good. That helps hold it in place so it doesn't like fall out or anything like that, so that's nice. And let's go ahead and assemble the rest of the gun. So I'm just gonna make sure that wires are out of the way, kind of tucked in. They do kind of flop about a bit. I probably could fix that, but I'm probably not gonna, so just look out for that. Now if you take the rear of the gun, you'll see that they line up and click together with just a little bit of tension, and there's like a nice rail system to help you keep everything aligned. And once they're together, you can take the very handy locking piece, which has this cool grid pattern on it, and you can click that right onto the top. Now the thing is very solid, it won't come apart. So now you have assembled the RR-36 prop. If we turn on the power, you can now see what those red LEDs are doing. So they're setting up warning lights on the back of the weapon. The cool thing is there are no electronics running back here. This is all piped to you by way of 4 acrylic rods. And in that way, we were able to keep all of the electronics up here without having to like disconnect wires or anything when you go to disassemble it. So let's talk a little bit about the rest of the rifle. It does have an illuminated optic, which if I aim it right at the camera, I think if I turn this on, you can just make out the illumination. I'll blink it a couple of times so you can see. So it's got a little green LED to it. The battery for that is underneath the adjustment cap on top. So you can just wiggle that off, and it's as raw as it can be. So it's a green LED, a little, was it CR20, whatever, that little button battery. You can get them at any hardware store in the world. But it is just kind of raw wires holding it together. So there is a little piece of paper towel there as a buffer to push the wire down onto the battery. But you know, that's fine. That's homebrew electronics at their finest. So that works really well. Now, as a heads up, I do want to mention that this optic and the little arm here that's kind of holding it in place, these are pretty delicate. So if you drop this, this will be the first thing to break. So be really careful with this. If these 2 mounts on the side of the gun ever broke off, they could be fixed, but it would be a real pain. So please try to be careful with those. You will see a lot of really cool features all along the gun. Obviously, we've got a lot of really cool paint. We've got some weathering in here. The screens, it is intended to be an ambidextrous weapon, but we've got it set up in left-handed configuration because the first owner is a lefty. So if you're holding it with your left hand, you can read the screen, which has like weapon temperature and ammunition and battery power. The outer screen is actually off. And by off, I mean it's just black acrylic and doesn't actually do anything. There's a lot of really nice attention to detail here. I'm gonna try to make the camera pick it up. We got some nice texture. There's actually skateboard tape that feels really good and really grippy. The weapon itself is completely covered in various Easter eggs and fun little nods to different people who helped build this, as well as a few Siglerverse nods as well. I think you can just make out the Rogalinski logo and 20mm, and there's a serial number, and there's even a stamp underneath that says property of the Planetary Union Government, which is pretty cool. So this is the prop. It's pretty sturdy, but I would consider it very delicate, and I would try to be very careful with it. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it brings you a lot of joy, and you get to have a lot of fun with it. If you ever have any questions about it, or if anything seems to malfunction or break or anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and if I can help in any way, I certainly will. It has been a complete and utter joy. It's one of the most fun projects I've ever got a chance to work on. So I want to say a huge thanks to Chris Grall, who helped with the design, and of course Scott Sigler, who came up with the universe within which the Rogalinski exists. So thank you all, and please enjoy your new prop. Cheers.